신정환's show for Fashion Week 2025.
Hey guys, welcome to Sundawan.
The world watched as a teenage girl soared through the freezing sky of Pyeongchang, twisting, spinning, defying gravity itself. At just 17, Chloe Kim became a global sensation, the youngest woman ever to win Olympic gold in snowboarding. Her smile lit up screens across the planet. She was fearless, flawless, unstoppable. But behind that perfect smile, there was silence. Behind the cheers came a storm. What no one saw was the weight she carried. The pressure of being America's golden girl, the daughter of Korean immigrants, a symbol of perfection in a world that demanded more with every jump. Fame came faster than she could breathe. The spotlight burned hotter than the sun. And in chasing perfection, Chloe Kim began to lose the one thing that made her soar: her joy. This is not just the story of a champion. It's the story of a young woman learning that victory means nothing if you lose yourself along the way. This is the rise, the fall, and the rebirth of Chloe Kim, when the cold of expectation met the fire within. Long before the world knew her name, Chloe Kim was just a little girl staring out the window of her family's small apartment in Torrance, California, dreaming of snow she rarely saw. Her parents had come from South Korea with nothing but hope, chasing a better life in a country that didn't always welcome them. Her father, Jong Jin Kim, once an engineer, gave up everything to build a future for his daughter. Every weekend, before sunrise, he would load the car with gear, snacks, and a sleepy Chloe in the back seat, driving for hours to the snow-covered slopes of Mammoth Mountain. There, in the biting cold, a 4-year-old girl found freedom. She fell, laughed, got back up, and kept going. The mountain became her playground and her destiny. Her father stood at the bottom of every run, cheering in broken English, holding a camera, believing she could fly. Her mother worried quietly, hoping this wild dream wouldn't break their family apart. Growing up, Chloe lived between two worlds: the expectations of a Korean household and the energy of American youth. She spoke two languages, balanced two identities, and often felt like she belonged to neither. But on the snow, none of that mattered. There, she wasn't Korean or American, just a girl carving her name into white silence. It was in those long drives, those frozen mornings, that the legend began. Not with fame, not with gold, but with love. A father's belief, a daughter's determination, and a shared dream strong enough to melt any winter. By the time most kids were figuring out high school, Chloe Kim was already making history. At just 13 years old, she was landing tricks that seasoned pros could only dream of, spinning through the air with a mix of grace and defiance. Coaches, sponsors, and reporters all said the same thing: she's not the future, she's the now. But when the 2014 Sochi Olympics came, Chloe was too young to compete. She watched from home as athletes older than her claimed the spotlight. And yet, the world kept whispering her name. That disappointment lit a quiet fire inside her. She didn't cry. She trained harder. Her father, still her #1 fan and coach, drove her to every competition, sleeping in cars, living on instant noodles, chasing snow wherever it fell. He believed his daughter was destined for greatness, even when the world didn't yet believe it. And soon, it did. At the X Games, Chloe shocked the snowboarding world, winning medals before she even had a driver's license. Her smile became her signature. She was fearless, untouchable, and utterly unstoppable. The media called her the flying girl, the new face of American snowboarding. But behind that smile, she was still a teenager trying to balance homework with fame, struggling to fit in at school, surrounded by cameras yet often feeling alone. Fame was coming fast. Maybe too fast. Still, she pushed forward. Because for Chloe, it was never just about winning. It was about honoring the long drives, the frozen mornings, and the father who believed she could touch the sky. The girl who was once too young for the Olympics was now too good to ignore. February 13, 2018. The air over Pyeongchang, South Korea was freezing, sharp, electric, alive. On that half-pipe of ice, under the blinding floodlights, stood a 17-year-old girl wearing an American flag on her sleeve and her parents' homeland beneath her feet. When Chloe Kim dropped in, time seemed to stop. One twist, two spins, a perfect landing. Then another run, even higher, even cleaner, even more impossible. The crowd roared. The commentators screamed. Her father cried. And history was made. She didn't just win gold. She redefined what it meant to fly. Overnight, Chloe became the face of the Olympics. Her smile was everywhere. Talk shows, magazines, cereal boxes, commercials. Time named her one of the most influential teens in the world. She was America's golden girl. Confident, unstoppable, everything the country wanted her to be. But behind that shine was exhaustion. Behind the headlines was a heart still figuring out who it belonged to. Reporters praised her as the perfect daughter of immigrants. Brands lined up, millions followed her online, and yet, she began to feel like a symbol instead of a person. Everyone wanted a piece of her. The perfect smile, the perfect story, the perfect girl. For a while, she played along. She laughed for the cameras, held the flag high, and told herself this was what she'd worked for. But late at night, when the noise faded, she felt something heavier. The quiet loneliness of success. Because no one tells you what happens after the dream comes true. When the cheers fade and the medals rest cold against your skin. At 17, Chloe Kim had reached the top of the world and suddenly realized how far she might fall. Fame came fast, and so did the fall. After the 2018 Olympics, Chloe Kim should have been on top of the world. But inside, she was breaking. The cameras followed her everywhere, but the smiles she gave them no longer felt real. Every word she said was analyzed, every move judged. And online, the comments turned cruel. She was called too Korean by some, not Korean enough by others. Her skin, her accent, her dual identity became targets for strangers who had never met her. The same people who once cheered for her now demanded perfection again and again, and punished her for being human. She confessed later that she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't breathe under the weight of expectations. "I was supposed to be happy," she said, "but I felt nothing." Behind the medals, she hid panic attacks and tears. She avoided the slopes, the spotlight, the noise. The world saw a champion, but she saw only a mirror she didn't recognize anymore. And so Chloe Kim disappeared. She turned off her phone, shut out the media, and walked away from the sport that had defined her. To some, it looked like weakness. To her, it was survival. Because what happens when the dream becomes too heavy to carry? When the ice beneath your feet starts to crack, and all the cheers in the world can't drown out the silence inside your own head? For Chloe, this wasn't defeat. It was the moment she realized she had to stop performing and start healing. When the spotlight fades, most stars disappear. But for Chloe Kim, the silence became her teacher. She stepped away from competitions, shut down her social media, and tried something terrifying. Living like a normal 20-year-old. No cameras, no coaches, no expectations, just Chloe. She enrolled at Princeton University, surrounded by books instead of boards, friends instead of fans. For the first time, she could laugh without being the Olympic champion. She studied, traveled, reconnected with her Korean heritage, and started therapy. Slowly, the noise in her mind quieted. She began to understand that her worth wasn't measured in medals. It was measured in peace. "I needed to remember why I loved snowboarding," she said. "Not for the gold, for the freedom." When she finally returned to the slopes, it wasn't with the fire of ambition, but with the calm of acceptance. The same girl who once chased perfection now chased joy. In Beijing 2022, Chloe Kim did what many thought impossible. She defended her Olympic title. But this time it felt different. She wasn't proving anything to the world. She was proving something to herself, that healing is also a form of victory. Her performance was smooth, effortless, almost serene. When she landed her final run, she smiled. Not the forced grin of fame, but the quiet, genuine joy of someone who had found balance again. Chloe Kim wasn't reborn through triumph. She was reborn through surrender. By her early 20s, Chloe Kim had already done more than most athletes could dream of. 2 Olympic gold medals, countless records, endless headlines. But her true legacy isn't written in statistics. It's written in hearts. For millions of young girls, especially those of Asian descent, Chloe became something bigger than a champion. She became proof. Proof that you could be proud of who you are and still belong anywhere. Proof that children of immigrants could carry 2 cultures, 2 identities, and still soar. She shattered more than snow. She shattered stereotypes. In a sport once dominated by white athletes, she made snowboarding global. In a culture obsessed with perfection, she made vulnerability powerful. And when she spoke openly about her mental health struggles, she broke another wall. Her honesty inspired athletes across sports to admit their pain, to choose healing over hiding. She reminded the world that strength isn't just medals and muscle. It's the courage to ask for help. Brands called her a role model. The media called her a voice of her generation. But to those who truly listened, Chloe Kim was something simpler. A mirror. A reminder that even heroes can hurt. Even champions can cry. And that grace lies not in never falling, but in learning how to rise again. Her gold medals will one day fade, but her message will not. Because Chloe Kim didn't just change snowboarding, she changed what it means to win. There comes a moment in every life when you stop chasing and start understanding. For Chloe Kim, that moment didn't happen on a podium. It happened in silence. She once thought happiness was something you earned. After gold, after applause, after perfection. But the higher she climbed, the emptier it felt. Only when she stepped back did she realize that peace wasn't waiting at the finish line. It was waiting inside her all along. She speaks now with the quiet wisdom of someone who has lived 2 lives, the prodigy who flew above the world, and the woman who learned how to land. She thanks her parents not just for their sacrifices, but for teaching her that love isn't measured by medals, and that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. In interviews, she often smiles and says, "I'm finally okay with not being perfect." It's a small sentence, but it carries the weight of everything she's endured. Chloe now mentors young athletes, supports mental health initiatives, and continues to snowboard. Not for glory, but for joy. The mountain no longer feels like a stage. It feels like home again, because the journey that began with a dream ended with something greater, understanding herself. And sometimes, that's the hardest victory of all. Under the soft glow of the setting sun, the snow glitters like gold, the same color as the medals she once chased. But Chloe Kim no longer rides for applause. She rides for freedom, for love, for herself. The world still remembers that teenage girl who soared above the clouds, fearless and untouchable. But the woman she's become is braver, because she knows fear and flies anyway. Her story is not just about winning. It's about falling, breaking, healing, and rising again. It's about a daughter's dream, a father's faith, and the courage to be imperfect in a world that demands perfection. From icy slopes to global stages, from silence to self-acceptance, Chloe Kim's journey reminds us that greatness isn't measured in gold. It's measured in grace, because in the end, every fall leaves a mark, and every scar tells a story. And when she stands on her board, eyes lifted to the horizon, you can almost hear the whisper of her truth. The real victory isn't over others. It's over fear itself.